You know, one of the stupidest things right now is that people date people they're attracted to.
It's stupid.
Dumbest thing on the planet. Let me ask you something. What are you attracted to eating?
Something that looks fascinating.
And is that always what you want to be eating?
Of course not.
We're just attracted. People have never asked themselves, why am I attracted to this?
Dr. K, MD, MPH, psychiatrist, and founder of Healthy Gamer. If you want to understand why we love the way we do, who we're drawn to, why people cheat, or why falling in love feels harder than ever, this episode is for you.
What we'll discover, and there's a lot of research about this, right? So if you had a parent who's abusive, the likelihood that you will date someone who is abusive is way higher than normal.
70% of divorces are filed first by women. Why do you think? What's happening here?
If you ask a woman, what are you losing with a divorce? They say, I'm losing a relationship. If you ask a man, what are you losing with a divorce? They say, make them feel good. Because touch is way more than sex.
Are women better at touching?
Yeah, because they do it more.
The culture of aggressive sex and touching has really increased. Why is that?
First thing that's happening is pornography addiction is on the rise. And one of the things about pornography is over time, people will watch more hardcore pornography. And the thing about violent pornography is that it activates you more, which is sometimes what people kind of need.
Why do people cheat?
Oh, so many reasons. Actually, just a couple of important ones. So like you're at work and you have this like positive interaction with someone at work and you get rewarded. You guys are kind of like, so you get these positive interactions and then you go home and you get nagging. You go home and you have problems and then you go to work and it's a break from these problems at your marriage. Right? So like you guys are going through a rough patch and there's someone at work who's like, oh my God, that must be so hard. And they're supportive, right? So there's kind of this polarization of like neutron and positron and electron happens all the time between work and home. I think, I absolutely think, you know, the person who gets the worst version of me is my wife. I also get the worst, I don't think I actually, this is interesting. I don't get the worst version of her.
Wow.
But I wonder if that's because I'm just better at managing her than some people in my family. Right? So some people just really they just don't get along. But
if you're watching this, please tell us.
I'm thinking about it and I was like, wait, I don't think it's reciprocal. I think she gets the worst version of me. But I think we're sort of, I hope we're okay with it. But she also gets the best version of me. So I realized some time ago that this happens where, you know, I'm coming here to this podcast and I'm smiling and like, oh, but there's a part of my brain that's getting exhausted. And when I go home, she's been just so supportive because when you do this stuff, I don't know what you're like, but I'm like wiped when I'm done with this. And so she'll get the most tired version of me. She'll get the neediest version of me and things like that. And then noticing that I think is really important because then I want to give her the best. So we did this thing. I love it. I think it's a great idea. So, you know, Christmas Eve and, you know, there's like Mother's Day.
Yeah.
So my daughters and I, we invented a holiday called Mother's Day Eve.
Okay.
Which is like the day before Mother's Day, the night before Mother's Day. We're going to stay up all night and we're going to celebrate Mother's Day.
How sweet.
Yeah. So we did this thing where she was like so we planned the day and then, you know, when she came home, she was like in the bath and stuff. And then we set everything out and then we celebrated. We had a party. That's also where I learned, you know, I used to think I don't like parties. I love parties. What I don't like is people. I don't like the people who come to parties. You know what's great is to have a party just with the people that you like 3 people, like wife and your 2 kids. It's awesome. It's so much fun. You order all of your favorite food. You don't have to worry about this uncle is coming and he's allergic to this. You just get all your favorite food. It's great. So I try really hard and I think people should too. Like we take our relationships for granted. And I think it's okay to give your spouse the most unregulated version of yourself. But we shouldn't just accept that, right? So I think it's okay that like when I'm my most authentic, vulnerable, angriest self, like I can do that with my wife because she's a part of me. We're partners. But then we absolutely need to be intentional about making that up, right? So if I'm putting her through that, she deserves the other end as well, more than anyone else on the planet. So I think I try the hardest to make her happy because she's the one who like makes this possible. Like in a very practical way. Like she's like watching my children right now and I'm going to be exhausted. She's going to be stressed out because she's been watching my children all day, or her children too. But and then, you know, she's the one who, if I tell her like, hey, I'm tired, like she's gonna. And so for that effort on her part, I want to make it like worthwhile.
You know, there's a thing called mother's touch starvation.
I've not heard of that, but I'm intrigued. Say more.
Okay.
I've heard of touch starvation.
Yeah. So it's about the mother gets so physically overwhelmed with the kids the full day with that touch and like the full day she's with. And then there's so much load, which is cognitive load and physical load. And there's emotional labor around it, that by the end of the evening, she gets extremely tired.
Sure.
Now, she hates when even the partner touches her.
Yeah.
But from the inside, she's starved and she's craving for that physical intimacy.
Yeah.
But the moment partner touches, it's just annoying.
Yeah.
So she doesn't want the partner to touch, but somehow she wants it.
Yeah.
It's a difficult phase. A lot of mothers go through it.
Yes.
So why does that happen? Like why a woman who becomes a mother, it almost gets to a point where she gets irritated by the husband who's sleeping right next to her. But at the same time, she wants the maximum support and intimacy at that time.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things there. First thing that we got to remember is that, so my wife and I have talked about getting divorced like 4 times. So like everyone thinks we have like oh, he's inventing holidays for me. Oh my God, you should be like him. So like, we have challenges and you know, it gets bad. So I think one of the hardest times is when you've got young children.
Okay.
So people just don't understand, like everyone thinks like, you know, kids are great, and like kids are great. Like I love my kids. And I really think they're great, but also like the hardest time in my life has been when we have young kids. And the reason for that to understand is just that you as a human are not appropriately resourced. Like sleep is important for your basic functioning. Like for 70 years of your life, you're going to be sleeping basically 8 hours a day. The 3 years that you have young kids at home, you're not going to, and then human beings just fall apart. So everything gets really, really challenging. Everything gets really difficult. So one thing that happens is, you know, our brain regulates stimulus that requires energy. So I'm just thinking about my own relationship. So like I burp and it really annoys my wife. And so, you know, but her tolerance of that is like, depending on how much she slept and what else is going on. So the key thing is, you know, especially when you've got young kids at home, there's just all kinds of stuff that is not functioning the way that it's supposed to function. People gain weight and people get moody. And thankfully, I don't think we dealt with postpartum depression or anything like that, but sometimes that kind of stuff happens. And so it's just a really physiologically and psychologically trying time. There's also all kinds of stuff about, you know, are you being a good parent? And then like something scary happens is like you dislike your kid, you get angry with your kid, and then you feel like a bad parent, but it's like normal to get angry with your kids. Like it's like evolutionary, right? And that's part of the reason, that's part of how they learn how to behave. And, you know, my mom used to be like, "Ek lafo maris." I don't know if that makes sense. And, you know, and so sometimes my mom would be like, you know, your kids, they'd be so much easier if you just smacked them once. Yeah. All it takes is once. And she's a really loving mother, and she's like just a really saintly person. Is a pediatrician, is a doctor, and has taken care of kids all of her life. But she's like, if you just smack them once, they'll be so much better. We're like, Mom, we don't do that anymore. So I think that there's all kinds of things that go on. So you want a certain kind of touch, and you're not being supported. And this is where this may be a little bit of a hot take, but I think the other real reason that happens is because we as dudes suck at touching our wives. Like we suck at it.
Why do you say so?
Because we don't spend time learning how to touch, and this is going to sound kind of weird, like touching women or men in a way to make them feel good. Because touch is way more than sex. We don't learn like I went in for a hug and you gave me a handshake and then we did a hug, right? But like we don't know, like we don't learn, and something weird happened where we as a society got really like homophobic at some point, and then dudes stopped touching each other. Like there's no like male contact anymore. Like I remember when I went to India in 2003, there was a friend of mine at the ashram who was getting married, and I saw something really weird. So two of his friends came up to him. He had his arm around two of his friends, and both of his male friends were rubbing his belly like this. And they were making jokes about how he's going to get fat because now he's going to get married and things like that. And I was like, what is this? I think in India, it's like a little bit better where like men used to touch each other.
Yeah.
But so we just don't know, like, you know, we don't know how to give like a foot massage. We don't know how to give a shoulder massage. Like what kind of touch, like, and sometimes people are overstimulated and they just don't want to be touched. And then this is also where we also like suck at emotional support. You know, we don't know how to do that.
True.
So many times, like, you know, if your female partner is telling you it's so hard to be a parent, you try to fix it. Because like what we're socialized as men to do is like, this person is problem, man responsible, man fix, thing bad, I help, I make it go away. Stop feeling that way. I feel uncomfortable with the way that you are feeling. Unhappy wife, unhappy life. Wife unhappy, I fix it. We don't know how to listen. We don't know how to like hold space. So I think some of that like mother's touch starvation, I think just is because we suck, dude.
Are women better at touching?
Yeah. I think on average, probably. Because they do it more. Right?
But how do they know how to comfort a man by just being there and touching them in the right way versus a man just suck at it? Like,
yeah, so they learn different skills. So they're good at emotionally supporting each other too. And so there's one kind of emotional labor that men are socialized to be better at, which is something called emotional containment. So if someone is falling apart, you as a man can handle that. So even when, you know, men and women around me, men are better at this. So if someone around you is falling apart, you can handle that more. We're worse at like emotional support in ways that are not containment. And I don't know. I mean, I think like when we think about, you know, so your dad and your mom gave you hair oil massages, right? Who gave you more hair oil massages, right? And then and when you were sick, like, did they pat you to help you sleep? Who did that?
Both of them, but mom more, yeah.
Right? So I think like moms do it more. So it's not like our fault. That's important to understand. It's like we suck at it, but it's not our fault that we suck. Because we're just never like, who's going to teach you? Like, are we going to reposition the chairs? Right? We have like just think about podcast culture. Like, what are we doing? We have 1,000 podcasts out there and everyone's like teaching all this about motivation and neuroscience and like, you know, ego and dark triad, but we're not teaching people how to touch.
Yeah. True. So I want to, because you said dark and touch, I have a question, okay, which is a little deviating from here, but I think it's an important one here, right?
Yeah.
It's the culture of aggressive sex and touching has really, really increased.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, why almost, I was reading something that this is more in teenagers now and Gen Alpha and Gen Z, that they almost think that women think that choking is almost normal.
Yeah.
And they would want to have that because that's how things are done. And men have the subtle pressure that they need to be more aggressive because they think that that's what women want. Probably both of them don't want, but just they both think that it's normal.
Yeah, so I don't know how normal people think it is. So it's absolutely on the rise.
It's on the rise. It's not like everybody, but it's not.
So what I've heard a lot of is the amount of non-consensual, non-discussed asphyxiation, which is choking, you know, during sex is like skyrocketing. So people will be just engaged in sexual activity, and like someone will start choking, and like they're like, what is going on?
And nobody will point it out.
Or they will. So I think there's a lot of different things. So one thing that I've learned as a doctor is that very few things have one cause. Everything is multifactorial. Like at the beginning, we were like, why are some people this way? Right? And it's genetics, it's upbringing, it's all karma, whatever. So I think first thing that's happening is we have to understand the evolution of pornography. So part of the reason that erectile dysfunction is on the rise is because pornography consumption is on the rise. Pornography addiction is on the rise. And part of the reason that pornography is, and there are a couple of reasons for this. One is also that with things like OnlyFans, you get activation of certain parts of your brain that did not used to get activated with pornography. So 50 years ago, you can look at like a Playboy magazine, but there's no relationship between you and what you see. Now this person is interacting with you. Mm-hmm. So we're starting to see parasocial relationships form, right? So now your brain, not only do you get a physical stimulus, but you get potentially an emotional stimulus. They express gratitude. You start to have regular contact. So it's interesting. You asked like, how do affairs happen? There's a certain science behind this that we can get into later. But if you look at the science of how people fall in love and the science of how people fall in love explains how people have affairs. The science of how we fall in love also explains parasocial relationships. So people are getting more into pornography, and part of this is like the democratization and technology and all that good stuff too, right? Because now if you're a young woman, like a relatively, I wouldn't say it's easy, but a relatively easy way for you to make a decent amount of money is for you to do an OnlyFans, right? So there's a reason why many women are doing it, because the opportunity cost is pretty good compared to their other situation. And there are other factors like jobs are not keeping up with inflation, so you have to do something on the side and might as well do that kind of thing. So pornography is changing. And then the other thing that happens, so now let's talk a little bit about one other factor, which is that there's a dopaminergic tolerance that happens with pornography. And this is not just pornography, it's basically other things online, where there's this thing called online drift. So if you look at your algorithm, if you watch one video about a topic that is polarizing, the algorithm will give you way more of that, right? So there's kind of a joke that sometimes people in our community will say, which is like, if you watch a single Jordan Peterson video, I'm not saying he's good or bad or anything like that. He has a fantastic course on personality, which helped me a lot when I was a resident. If you watch a single one, you're going to get a ton of it, right? So things get polarized, things get extreme. And one of the things about pornography is if you watch the same kind of pornography, your brain will acclimatize to it. So over time, people will watch more hardcore pornography. You need to be stimulated by it more. So what we're starting to see is that violent pornography is on the rise. And I suspect that there's a really good reason for the rise of erectile dysfunction, pornography addiction, because as we're starting to use pornography to regulate our emotions more, as we're starting to use it to activate our dopamine systems more, as our life falls apart in the real world, we need more of a hit. And the thing about violent pornography is that it activates you more, which is sometimes what people kind of need, because if it's mild, it doesn't pull you out of your life the way you need it to, because you've got built up some tolerance to it. So then as we watch that, right, then it starts trending, then it becomes normal, then you see it more, then you think it's normal. So I asked you a question a long time ago about, something about, you mentioned something about people are more discontent. Why is that? And I think the reason is because they're seeing so much success all around them. So in your case, you had number 1, number 2, and number 3. But now if I go online, I'm going to see Raj Shamani, age 29, absolutely crushing it. And then I'm going to see Dr. K, who's crushing it less, but still crushing it. And I'm going to see this guy. Right? I'm going to see that guy. I'm going to see all these people who are really successful. So we're starting to get bombarded by really distorted versions of reality. And so as you watch a lot of pornography, you think this is normal. Or the other thing that can happen is now your brain has started to form associations, which is like a little bit about how like fetishes work and things like that. So once you know, this is a little bit vulgar, but sometimes, you know, people will be attracted, like teenagers will frequently be attracted to older women, not like old women, but like, and the reason for that is because when you hit puberty, like your friend's mom is around, right? So then like when you have all these hormones flowing through you and things like that, and you start to form associations, which is why like MILFs are a thing, right? And so you form there, and there's behavioral reinforcement. There's like reinforcement for some of these things. So like now this is what turns you on. And you're also seeing, because you've never had sex before, all the women that you see having sex seem to be enjoying it. So then you try doing it the first time you have sex and the woman is really confused and it kind of turns you on or whatever. So there's all kinds of factors that are going into this. And then the problem is on the woman's side, if this is what all the dudes are doing, if they're watching this kind of porn, then maybe I want to live up to that. And this is really common where, you know, there's fear of rejection. There's wanting to make your partner happy. There's also socialization to make your partner happy, right? I've had female patients who are, and let me know if this is like okay or not okay, but you know, I've had female patients who are 70 years old, and part of a psychiatric intake is to do a sexual history. It's like questions we should ask everybody. Like, doesn't matter how old you are. And people are stunned because they're like, hi. Like, you're talking to a 7-year-old woman about her sex life? Like, yeah, because 7-year-old women can't get pregnant. And so if they have sex, they stop using condoms. And then they can still get sexually transmitted infections. You know, there's like COVID outbreak. Like you go to a nursing home in the United States, like you go to some of these retirement communities in places like Florida, you'll have like herpes outbreaks there. It's a real public health thing, right? And it's kind of weird. People don't think about it, but like they, you know, that's just part of being a doctor. And sometimes I'll have patients who have never had, a 7-year-old woman who's like never had an orgasm. And how do you get to that point? It's because when this person was growing up, and we'll talk about it, like I know it makes some people uncomfortable, but the whole point of a psychiatrist is you should be able to talk about whatever, right? And then as I try to understand that, you know, because when they were growing up, it wasn't like your sexual pleasure was not a part of marriage, right? Like it's just not, you're supposed to keep your husband happy is like the world that she grew up in. So women are socialized to keep their man happy, right? We see this on Instagram and here's how you keep your man happy or whatever.
Do you think more women want this aggression in men? And
so, you know, you're asking a lot of like general questions about populations. Mm-hmm. My overwhelming experience is that people are individuals. So I've had some patients who are totally fine with, you know, BDSM and things like that. I've had some patients who, it's really interesting from a dating perspective. Like I had one male patient who, you know, we were talking about he was in his late 20s and we were talking about his dating life. And he was telling me like one day he came, so we were working on another issue, but he came in and he's like, look, this thing happened to me where I was on this date and, you know, I was being intimate with a girl and she like slapped me. And then I was like, I'm not into that. And she slapped me again. She was like trying to make me mad because she like wanted me to she wanted me to lose control and that's what she wanted. And it was like, so it's hard for me to say, like in population wise, like it could, maybe they want it more. I don't know. It's not something that I've seen.
But have you seen any difference between people who want this aggression versus people who don't want? Is there some pattern or some behavior about their childhood or the way they're living or their profession or something which is a pattern between people who like being aggressive versus people who don't?
Sort of. So I think that this is where we have to get, once again, like a bit technical, but I would say people being aggressive is not all one group of people. So there's different kinds of things, right? So there's absolutely situations where there's this psychological principle called the repetition compulsion.
What is it?
Which is why people end up dating the same kind of person like over and over and over again. Right. So you'll hear some people say like, there's no good men out there. Or like all women are bitches.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is, this is so interesting. I'm working on a lecture on this now. You know, one of the stupidest things right now is that people date people they're attracted to. I know it sounds weird, right?
It's stupid.
It's dumb. The dumbest thing on the planet. Let me ask you something. What are you attracted to eating, Raj? What do you want to eat?
Something that looks fascinating.
Okay, great. And is that always what you want to be eating? Like, I'm attracted to a cookie, right? Should I eat a cookie?
No.
Okay.
It's bad for me.
Yeah. So you may be different because I know you're sad on the inside or whatever. But like,
why have you painted this picture?
My bad. Okay. But so if you think about like, you know, you have all these things like, so if are you when you wake up in the morning, what are you attracted to? Like in terms of what do you want to do? How do you want to spend your time?
The moment I get up?
Yeah.
I want to eat something really, really junk and sugary.
Okay, great, right?
Like
and then what?
But I don't end up eating that.
You don't end up eating. What do you want to do next?
Then I just want to sleep.
Okay, right. So you're attracted to sleep and you're attracted to junk food. Should you engage in those things?
No, of course not.
Okay, but so your brain is like, I want junk food and I want sleep and I want to spend time on Instagram and I want to spend time on TikTok, but we don't do those things. They're bad for us. But when it comes to love and relationships, that's where our brain gets it right. It's crazy, right? We're just attracted and we're just going to listen to the brain because when it comes to love, that's when the instinct is 100% correct. And when it comes to like cell phone and dopamine and food, it's wrong over there, but in this one dimension, it's right. It's so crazy. So this is what's really wild. People don't understand. People have never asked themselves, why am I attracted to this? And what I've discovered is that a lot of people have this thing called the repetition compulsion, which is that we have certain relationships which kind of get messed up early in life. And then what we try to do is fix those situations in the future. So we talked about this with you, sort of, right? Where there's this wound over here, and now you're trying to correct it over here. But no matter how much you try, it doesn't work 100%. Yeah. And that happens all the time in relationships. So like what we'll discover, and there's a lot of research about this, right? So if you had a parent who's abusive, the likelihood that you will date someone who is abusive is higher than normal, way higher than normal. So what happens is, and literally the way this looks psychologically is like, I tried my whole life to get, let's say, my dad to like love me. And I failed. But now that this person is behaving in the same way, I'm going to make them love me. Because if I can succeed over here, I'll be healed. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And so, and there's other elements to this too, just the kind of conditioning that we're comfortable with. So here's what's really weird is when I work with patients who are trauma survivors, the first reaction they have to the relationship they should engage in is discomfort. It's weird. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing getting me a gift? Because their association with gift is dad used to get me gifts after he hit me. And now you're getting me a gift. Like the thing we'll say in the US is waiting for the other shoe to drop. So they run away from the very things. And for dudes too, it's like, you know, I'll work with a lot of men who have something called avoidant attachment, which is like they have difficulty with intimacy. So they want sex to be a transactional relationship. And when someone like, when a woman is like warm with them, or like, you know, like if they're having a hard day, she like takes your head and puts it on her chest, not as a sexual move, but just as like, let me hold you as a human because you're having a tough time. They like get really confused. They want a woman who's really sexy. Right? Not a woman who's like caring, because that's like, ew, that's gay. Like, you know? And so there are a lot of these weird things that happen in relationships where we're attracted to a particular thing, but we need to stop and ask ourselves, why is my brain attracted to this thing? And oftentimes, you know, we kind of understand this colloquially, where we'll say this person has daddy issues or this person has mommy issues. And if you've got daddy issues, you're going to date a lot of people who are abusive or whatever. If you have mommy issues, you're going to date people who are, I don't know, abusive or motherly, or I don't know exactly what. So there's a lot of stuff about attraction that, like, oftentimes what we need to do is date the people that we're not initially attracted to. And when you look at successful relationships, that'll oftentimes be the case, right? So we didn't start out this way. And this is kind of funny. So my wife and I basically had one rule when we were dating. Both of us had one rule, which is that we're not going to end up with an Indian person. And we're both Indian. Like, we're both Gujarati. I was like, there's no way I'm marrying an Indian girl. And she's like, there's no way I'm marrying an Indian guy. It's like, Indian guys are like, you know, they're like mama's boys and they want everything done for them and stuff like that. There's no way I'm marrying an Indian girl. It's like, I can't handle that. And so we really bonded over that. We're like, you know, so it's so interesting. We come up with these rules early on. And this too is kind of like silly. Like, what do you know about a successful relationship? And you're coming up with all these rules about what you deserve and stuff like that. And this is where we can get to the science of love and relationships, because none of that stuff is what leads to a successful relationship. Anything that you see on a dating app has nothing to do with a successful relationship. And here's the really scary thing. The dating apps can't select for the things that result in relationships. Okay, I don't know.
Explain, yeah.
Right? So